What's up, guys, and welcome to Press Save Repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold.
Hey, everybody.
And it's finally here. The 2017 Press A Repeatedly Game of the Year awards are in.
I'm really excited. I know all of you out there are excited. Looking forward to the one and only official Game of the Year awards to be issued out. I hope you guys are all set for the next 6.5 hours. We're going to bring you the best and greatest in Game of the Year coverage.
That sound you heard was everybody closing their podcast app and turning this off.
No, we're maybe going to go an hour. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll just start by briefly summing up how everything worked. We sent ballots to a lot of our close friends, many of whom have been on the show this year and have helped us put this show together, done a lot of work for the show. And we asked them basically to pick their top 10 favorite games of the year and also their winners for a certain handful of categories. And, of course, also some of their favorite moments of the podcast and their favorite moments this year in gaming.
Yeah, and we had, a few of our categories were a little more lighthearted. Like we had favorite gaming moment, which we're not going to have like a final official tally for. Also, favorite moment from the podcast this year. And just as a quick recap, our non-game of the year categories. We're going to have top 3 for each of those. Plus, we're going to include at least one honorable mention for each category. Something that may not have cracked the top 3, but is still worth mentioning. And our game of the year, similarly, we've got our 1 through 10, but we're also going to have the 11th through 15th ranked games as our honorable mentions.
Yes, there's a lot to cover. So basically, every game that was put on the ballot had different point values. And Chris and I spent a lot of time yesterday tallying everything up. And Chris, I gotta hand it to you. You really made that whole process a lot easier. My initial dumb way to do it was to kind of write everything down with tally markers. And we were getting ready to do that, and Chris was like, "Wait, you idiot! I made a template in Excel that does all the hard work for us." And that's what we did.
Yeah, I don't recall calling you an idiot out loud.
You felt it, though.
Mentally, I screamed it, as I often do when we're together. But no, I didn't say it out loud. But yeah, I had an Excel, it was more of a Google Sheet, if we're being specific.
That's the same
but
crap.
It's the same thing. But yeah, I put it together, so all we had to do was go ballot by ballot, and we added in what the point total was for each person's vote. So if you had, say, for example, best art direction, and you had a game in first place, then we would give that game 3 points under your header. Then everything would add up. We would total everything out, sort it, and our top 3 then would be the ultimate winners.
Yep, and I gotta say, there were some things that we kind of predicted, but a lot of it was a lot of fun surprise, and a lot of it was a pretty close race.
Yeah, a lot of them were a lot closer than I would have expected. Some of them were, the way the results shook out were very surprising. One category in particular is extremely surprising, and I can't wait to get to that one, but in due time.
That's just as good a tease as any. What do you say we stop yammering and get on with these awards?
Yes, let's.
All right, so here we go. The first award for the 2017 Press A Repeatedly Game of the Year Awards will be going to Best Music. And in third place, Super Mario Odyssey.
Super Mario Odyssey. That, that is... It's such a hard thing to like pick these categories out and have a winner sussed out, because think about like Super Mario Odyssey is in third place, and that game had amazing music. I'm just wow. Go on. What's next?
One of my favorite tracks from Super Mario Odyssey has to be that surf rock one and that one like garden level.
Oh yeah. I know the one you're talking about. Man, there are just so many great tracks from that game, including, the one from that I can't really mention. If you've played the game, you know exactly the one I'm talking about. But yeah, just amazing soundtrack that really ties the entire game together. Definitely worthy of winning our bronze for best music.
Right, and moving on to second place, Destiny 2.
Again, man, it's just so atmospheric, and it almost has an ethereal quality to it. Like,
Yes.
you go in and you hear, like, they have the choir singing. They're doing like that thing that I can't do clearly, but it just gives it this feeling of epicness. You go in and you're like, man, like, we gotta save the world. And I mean, combined with everything else with Destiny 2, it just gives it this overwhelming feeling of like you're doing something important, like what you're doing matters, and it gives it this grand scale, this epic feeling. And yeah, it just, man, what more can you say?
Yeah, it had that great string quartet that they used in a lot of parts. I remember my favorite part musically of that game was, I think it was the second level when you fall to Earth and like you lose all your powers and you're just kind of like getting up and just walking through like the ruined city, and you leave the city and then you start walking through like the mountains and like those dogs start attacking you, and like, you know, there's like eagles flying overhead and you see how beautiful the game looks. But then yeah, that whole time there's this beautiful like string quartet music going on in the background that like just invokes so much emotion. I loved it so much.
All right, now what is our gold medal winner for best music of 2017?
Our first winner of the day goes to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
That music in that game. Now, this soundtrack, believe it or not, has gotten quite a bit of pushback from different members of the Zelda gaming community. A lot of people aren't entirely happy with the soundtrack because ordinarily a Zelda soundtrack is just grand and epic, and it makes you feel like the hero. You are the hero of Hyrule, the hero of Winds, or whoever, and you're sailing around or riding around saving the day. Whereas Breath of the Wild soundtrack is a lot more subdued and kind of, it's quieter, more somber, more reflective. But honestly, like, I think that fits the game really well, because you're going into Breath of the Wild. This is a ruined Hyrule. Like, you are entering a Hyrule where Ganon has won. There's destroyed villages and buildings all over the place. The Temple of Time is in ruins. Ganon is encircling Hyrule Castle. All the champions are dead. This is not a time for Link to be like happy-go-lucky and like, yeah, you know, I'm ready to save the day or whatever. Like, this is a really sad, like, it's got a very sad undercurrent to the game, and the soundtrack really captures that really well. So I'm really glad to see that Breath of the Wild came out on top in this category.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, best music isn't about rock melt your face off music, you know, it's about what best fits the situation. And in most of Breath of the Wild, you are exploring this vast, open, atmospheric world with this soothing, calming, you know, nature-esque music in the background, and it works. It fits perfectly. But that doesn't mean there's not an epic, you know, grand scale music in it as well. Remember storming Hyrule Castle? I mean, how great was that music when that kicked in?
That, honestly, like, we didn't have a favorite track of this year, but that track, that one scene, I must have, like, outside of the game, I must have listened to that one track over and over and over again. Like, if you're a workout junkie, if you go to the gym a lot, that is amazing pump you up music. Like, you feel like you could rip a boulder in half with your bare hands just listening to that song. It's just like, oh, and it's so perfect for finally storming the castle and saving the day.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, the one trailer they showed for Breath of the Wild right before it released literally made me cry, and I think it was in large part of how epic and grand scale the music was in that trailer. Okay, so we have our first honorable mention of the day. Now, the honorable mentions work where they're basically the game that came in fourth place of the tallying. Sometimes there will be ties, so we'll have 2 or 3 games to mention. But for this one, there's only one, and the honorable mention for best music goes to, not surprisingly, Cuphead.
Yeah, I mean, Cuphead calls you right back to those old 1930s cartoons, down to the animation style and, of course, the music. And, I mean, it's jazzy, it's upbeat, And I mean, you want to kind of like snap your fingers along to these jazzy tunes. And it just, again, like Justin was saying earlier, some music fits different games better than others. And Cuphead's music just works perfectly with that game because the whole idea of Cuphead is you are playing one of those 1930s cartoons, and it just helps get you into that feel that you are in this world. And it just, it's just so snappy and fun. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of that soundtrack.
Yes, absolutely. All right, a quick recap. Winner of Best Music, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, followed by Destiny 2, followed by Super Mario Odyssey, and our honorable mention is Cuphead. Chris, what do we got next?
Our next category is Best Art Direction. Now, Best Art Direction, this is going to be like best style, best art style. It's not necessarily which game is strongest graphically. That's coming up in a little bit. This is the game that just looked really interesting and was well designed.
Right, think more
visually.
creative than technical.
Correct. Okay, so in third place, we had Persona 5.
I have yet to play Persona 5, regrettably, but watching a lot of videos and seeing just not only how the game looks, but its presentation. I know, like, when you press the pause menu, like, this really cool menu comes up of, like, the main guy, like, punching at the screen or whatever, and just the graphics that they use and everything. I mean, that whole game just, like, screams style.
I never played the game too much myself. I know I played it a lot with Elena and Lewis over at their place, but it just has, it's an old cliche with Persona 5, but it's got style. This is a game that just looks cool. It feels cool. And especially as Justin, as you said, in the user interface and the menu system, like it's not just a simple, oh, here's a little simple square with all the different categories there. People do they punch the screen or they strike a pose, and all the words and everything is in these zigzag styles. Different words are bigger than others. It just, it really well designed, really snappy look. It's got a traditional anime style to it because it's mostly anime based, but it's not like a typical anime looking game. It's got its whole own look to it. Once you see a screen from Persona 5, you can't confuse it for any other game.
Yeah, very unique.
Yes. All right. Moving on to number 2, and our second place winner in Best Art Direction, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, what can you say about this game? This beautiful art direction that they went. A mix of almost cel shady, but almost more detailed graphics and some cartoony in there. But just the whole game almost felt like a watercolor painting. It was just such a beautiful thing to look at in every moment in the game. I think the first time I came across a big lake with the sun setting and seeing the reflection of the sun on the water just glistening, it was just one of the most beautiful moments I've seen in a game.
The entire aesthetic of Breath of the Wild is just jaw-dropping, from the design of the enemies. You got the bokoblins, the Lizalfos, even the dreaded Lynels. Every one of those enemies looks unique and fearsome, or not quite so fearsome in their own right. The environments are just absolutely gorgeous. The game is very colorful. It's very hard to miss anything, because everything is just so vibrant, and if there is something different, like a collectible item or something, it just pops right off the screen, and it just looks so amazing. And it's just so well done. It captures it's hard to talk about. It has that post-apocalyptic sense to it where Ganon has taken over, yet life has kind of moved on. The trees are still blooming, the grass is still growing, nature is still thriving in this world.
Great point, yeah.
Yeah, nature is still thriving in this world, but you can see the different scenes of ruin and destruction littered in different spots all throughout Hyrule. And yeah, the art direction does a great job in making you feel the world is different now because Ganon has taken over, but it's still thriving in its own way.
All right. So what's next?
The first place winner of Best Art Direction goes to Cuphead.
Now, this wasn't a surprise. I think this was a domination win, right?
This was a dominating win. With very few exceptions, pretty much all the ballots that we got in voted Cuphead as the first place winner in this category for very, very good reason.
Yeah, this is a completely unique experience in a game that's never been done before. Many wondered if it even could be done properly. You basically feel like you're watching a cartoon from the 1930s era, but you're actually playing a game in that style. They absolutely nailed the aesthetic they were going for. And I haven't met one person who was turned off or wasn't a fan or even just thought it was okay of how the game looked. This thing was, without a doubt, the best looking, unique style of a game to be presented in 2017.
Yeah, Studio MDHR, they've been working on this game for a long, long time, and most of that time was spent in just designing the characters and animating everything, not just so that it ran smoothly, so that the characters, like, all acted right, but that it had the same feel as a 1930s cartoon. Like, it wasn't animated up to, like, even today's standards. It had the look and feel of one of those old Max Fleischer cartoons. And, I mean, props to them. They nailed it. They did it. It was just an incredibly unique experience. It's got its whole own aesthetic going on to it. The bosses are unique and fun, and especially in their designs. Like, you don't get the sense at all in Cuphead that any of the bosses are like a copycat from one to the other. Like, every single one of them stands out in their own unique way, and a big part of that is the look and feel of Cuphead. And it also has kind of like that, like, an understated part of it is the, like, little cuts and, like, little, like, scratches that are present in the game.
On, like, the film reel.
Yeah, as if it's, like, on a film reel that's been damaged over time. They even brought that into the game, which is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Totally.
All right, and our honorable mentions. We have 2 honorable mentions for Best Art Direction, and these are Little Nightmares and Night in the Woods.
Yeah, 2 fantastic looking games. Night in the Woods. That art style actually captivated me years ago when I saw it floating around on Kickstarter. Completely drew my attention to the game just by how it was presented. I followed it for years, was much anticipating its release this year. So very happy for that. And Little Nightmares, what a creepy and cool blend of, like, almost cartoony 2D style with just some really horrifying monsters and just really beautiful set pieces for going through the different levels. And just what a pleasant experience to play that game as well. So I'm glad these 2 actually made it into a tie for honorable mention.
Yes, so quick recap. Our winner for Best Art Direction is Cuphead. Second place is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And third place is Persona 5. Honorable mentions go to Little Nightmares and Night in the Woods.
All right, moving right along. Right after art direction, naturally, we have best graphics. Now, best graphics is basically the game that, on the technical standpoint, looks the best, like most realistic, the most movie-esque, if you will, with most amazing looking graphics that really take hold and use of everything that a system has to offer, using all the horsepower on your TV system to bring you the best looking experience that can be in a game. And let's see, we're going to start with number 3, which is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
I mean, yeah, that's, again, not a surprise to see this game ranked on our top 3. Graphically, like Justin said earlier, the game is just really, really impressive. Just the idea that you can see so far out into the distance, and these are not just, they're background environments that are going on. These are places that, like, actually exist in the game that you can go to. Now, they save this by having a lot of different artifacts way in the distance kind of disappear and fade in. I think they focus mostly on enemies that and NPCs that can fade away and pop in the closer you get. But still, it helps. Like, you look around. I mean, when you get on top of one of those towers and you can look out in the distance and you can see pretty much the entire land of Hyrule. You can see the swamps in Ferrore Woods. You can see Death Mountain. You can see the Hebra region in the northwest. All of these, and they all have their own unique feel. Enemies. There is a little bit of an issue, I suppose, like as you look out in the distance and you see like enemies pop in and out closer range, but I mean, that's part of the technical limitations of the Switch itself. But the game has it doesn't really have too many stutters to it now that they've released a patch. When the game first came out, there were some areas where they had frame rate issues. I remember especially in the Master Sword area in the Lost Woods. That used to be a major issue with frame rates until they stabilized everything. So yeah, I've got no issues with Breath of the Wild being third.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might forget just how great the lighting and particle effects were in Breath of the Wild. Some of the day-night cycle stuff, some of the sunsets, some of the sunrises, even just exploring at nighttime, being lit by a full moon, some of that stuff was just absolutely beautiful. And it's funny you mentioned the Lost Woods, but going through all the fog to try and find the Master Sword and everything, like that stuff just looked so great and really immersed you into the game. And, I'm glad it has a third place on this list. And moving on, our number 2 pick for best graphics, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Ah, man, what can you say? Just look, if you just look at this game, you're gonna wonder like what on earth could possibly be number 1 that Horizon Zero Dawn is only number 2 on our list. Horizon Zero Dawn, that is a game that we haven't talked about too much on our show, but that is a game that any other year would just dominate every game of the year listing that's out there. It is a phenomenal game. It's a phenomenal looking game. Just because like you're a tribal warrior in a land where you have these robot animals roaming the landscape, and with the issues with like frame rates or pop-in, you don't really have that with Horizon Zero Dawn. And everything runs smoothly. All the character animations look realistic. There isn't an uncanny valley to any of them. They all look unique too. That's to me what is really impressive is everyone has unique facial animations. Everyone looks different, sounds different. Horizon Zero Dawn is just a beautiful looking game, and again, the lighting aspects, like if the sun shines through like the trees and reflects off the leaves and all that, it just will take your breath away. This is Horizon Zero Dawn is a game that you should not sleep on. If you haven't played it yet, seriously recommend getting it.
Yeah, the facial expressions are fantastic in that game. The character models are great. All the lasers and elements that are used in Aloy's weapons and the enemy's weapons, the laser eye sights of the enemies, the lighting used for them as well. Like, it's all just really comes together in a beautiful package, and definitely deserves a second spot on this list. However, there can only be one winner, and this winner was also turned out to be a dominating win. Our best graphics winner for 2017 goes to Destiny 2.
And that is not a surprise whatsoever. That, again, this is a game where I'm glad the game gives you an option to just sit down and look around. Like, no matter where you are, you can just kind of take a sit and rest. And it gives you, the player, the opportunity to just kind of look around your environment and appreciate the world or worlds that you're in. Because, man, my God, I don't know what's more impressive, the world that you're actually exploring just the different flora and fauna of these different planets and these different worlds, or the view when you look out in the night sky and you see these different ships flying along, or you see planets or moons off in the night sky, and how the rings that encircle them, and it's just, man, it's jaw dropping. Like, I literally would sit there for like minutes at a time just staring at this game, just completely blown away by how it looks. And man, it was just it really is it really is an experience. I almost said an out of this world experience, but I didn't. I want that on the record.
Kind of wish you did.
No, I didn't say it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, just everything from the design of the guns, the detail of the armor, the environments are, without a doubt, unbelievably exquisite. From all the different planets and incorporating a lot of different color palettes, like how Io's mostly green, and oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. But the one planet that starts with an N is always like reddish.
Oh,
Whatever. And, the waters in Titan, like, it's the environments are a complete standout of that game. The environmental design and just everything in particular. I was wowed every time I turned that game on, and without a doubt, that is our winner for best graphics. However, our honorable mention for best graphics goes to Assassin's Creed Origins.
Yeah, now this is a game that is no surprise to me. This came out a little bit later, and I think I was one of the only ones to play this game. I got a couple of votes.
You and Matt.
Yes, and yeah, we're the reasons why it has an honorable mention, which, I mean, it deserves an honorable mention and more. I mean, this is a game that takes place during ancient Egypt, and the environments look incredible. The character models look fantastic. The folks at Ubisoft did a phenomenal job in researching ancient Egyptian lifestyle. They did a lot of interviews with Egyptologists just so they could get down all the little details just right. And I feel like they've really captured what life is like back in ancient Egypt. Like, the city looks lived in. It looks, people are roaming around, and dust like kicks up from when you're riding a camel or when people are riding around. The sun reflecting off of the sand, like, it's bright in certain areas and might even like get in your eyes. And it just, yeah, it's really a technical marvel. Like, there are no hitches in the way the game plays at all. It's like, it really captures, it helps get you invested into playing the game, and makes you feel like you're actually a part of that world. And yeah, amazing job by the team there.
Okay, sounds great. So, a quick recap. The winner of Best Graphics for 2017 is Destiny 2, followed by Horizon Zero Dawn, followed by Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and our honorable mention, Assassin's Creed Origins.
Quick note, that planet is Nessus.
Nessus.
Yeah, Nessus. So hold your angry emails. Yeah. We got it. It's Nessus. All right. So moving right along, our next category is Best Multiplayer. And I mean, this needs no introduction, so we'll just dive right into it.
Sounds great.
All right. Now, our third place winner, it's an interesting pick, but our third place winner is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's hard to ignore this game, even if you are going back and forth on whether or not it should be included because of the early access deal. But, I mean, let's face it, this game came out in the end of February or beginning of March and quickly became not just a popular game, but a phenomenon. Everybody was playing. Everybody was talking about it. It offered a completely unique and new multiplayer style that other games started immediately biting off and trying to get on their own. And, it's just brought in so much money for that team and so many concurrent players on Steam right now. It's hard to ignore it.
Yeah, this is a game that even I picked up, but I mean, I tried playing it on my machine, on my PC. This is a game that, I mean, at the time it was released, and I think even now it's not really optimized too well for most machines. So you need a powerful machine to play this game. So I didn't put in as much time into this game as I would have liked, but again, like, this is a game that you can't really ignore the immense scope that this game has had and the effect it has had on the entire gaming landscape at this point. This is a game that everyone has talked about, everyone has played. You have a whole community now on Twitch streaming themselves playing PUBG, and it's just, what can you say? I mean, 20 million strong cannot be wrong about this game, and it's, I mean, man, I gotta tell you, a lot of the streams I've watched too, like I've watched Austin Walker and Patrick Klepek play PUBG a lot on their stream, and it is always entertaining because the map is the same, but where you wind up on the map and the events that get you towards potentially getting that chicken dinner is always different and hilarious in the ways that things can go wrong literally in just a fraction of a second.
Gotta get that chicken dinner.
Yeah, chicken's delicious. All right, so number 2 on our list for best multiplayer, Splatoon 2.
Splatoon 2, the sequel to Splatoon from a couple years ago. 4-on-4 squid-based ink splattering action. Yeah, it's actually surprised me that it got so many votes this year, but, you know, the votes don't lie. Second place, it added a new co-op mode, which was a lot of fun. However, this game did have a lot of caveats as well, right, Chris?
It did have quite a few caveats, but for the game that it actually was, it really was a lot of fun. Like, once you get into the actual action of itself, you know, of the gameplay itself, it's that old classic Splatoon gameplay.
Right, yeah, I should mention that there's not a problem with the gameplay. The gameplay is fantastic. It's just how it's presented and things that you're limited to that caused a lot of problems. But when you're actually in and playing the game, you're going to have a great time.
Yeah, agreed. This is a game, like, I mean, the gameplay is just the same as the original Splatoon, where you go around the environment and you have to ink more of the base before you have to ink more of the base than the enemy can, and that can require maybe eliminating your opponents, so you have more of a window to ink the environment. It's very different from a lot of the multiplayer shooter games that are out there, and it really is as refreshing now as it was back when the first Splatoon came out. And I'm really glad that people have more of an opportunity, because unfortunately the first Splatoon debuted on the Wii U, which was not a very strong seller, whereas now more people with the Switch is just taking off right now. They just passed 10 million lifetime sales. A lot more people are going to have an opportunity to play Splatoon 2, and they really should, because it is a fantastic game. Moving on, our number 1 best multiplayer game for 2017 in a dominating performance. This game, I think everybody voted for it at least once. Like, it was either 1 or 2 on most people's ballots. Destiny 2.
Yeah, so this game kind of spread like wildfire in our gaming community, much in part thanks to the praise of Dave, who loved the first game and wanted us all to play it. We never really did. And when the second one came out, he was like, you guys better pick up this freaking game. So we all did, and it absolutely deserves this award. We sunk hours into this game of just working together, shooting aliens, exploring the beautiful world and landscapes, getting all these guns, increasing your light level, and, you know, just really seeing all the game had to offer.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the whole multiplayer aspect of it, where I was underleveled for most areas and would be carried by Nick or Zool or
Same
Dave.
here. A lot of that happened.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
But that was the kind of beauty of it too, because you would never, if you didn't play as much as somebody else, it didn't matter because you would level faster with the help of the guys that had played more. So it wasn't
Right.
like you had to keep playing to be able to stay relevant because no matter where you were, you would get additional help to help you get up to where the guys need to be if you want to do some of the later end game stuff.
Right, and that's a really cool part of it too, because I mean, some parts, I mean, you just need a little help with, and that's kind of the whole point of Destiny 2 as a game. Like, you are this epic guardian who is helping to save the galaxy and the planet from this extraterrestrial threat, but you can't do it alone. Like, you need to rely on your teammates, both in the campaign mode and in multiplayer mode. Like, there's some monsters and some creatures that you can't just tackle all by yourself. We had a lot of fun doing the strikes. I know. I think a couple times a bunch of you guys tried the raid. Did you ever? Do you know if you ever beat that?
I wasn't in on that. That was all the other guys, and they didn't beat it, but they made it kind of far, I think.
Right. That raid is that is a bear to try to get through from everything I've heard. And and we also did the Crucible, which was fun for some of us.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. But yeah, no, Destiny 2, yeah, slam dunk, no doubt about it, winner of best multiplayer. Let's see, honorable mentions. We have 2 for honorable mentions. One is Mass Effect Andromeda, and the other, Snipperclips Cut It Out Together.
I can't speak personally for Mass Effect Andromeda, but I do know that my brother and Butch played a lot of it and really enjoyed it. They were big fans of the multiplayer in Mass Effect 3, and apparently it was a lot similar to that. So, that's really great to hear. And Snipperclips, there you go, man. That's another really unique multiplayer experience that just came out this year.
I'm really glad that Snipperclips at least got an honorable mention from us, because that is, I mean, the gameplay itself is pretty simple, but it's a co-op based game, and you have to like cut out different sections of your teammate to complete various tasks to solve a puzzle. Like, you have to get a ball from one end of the level into a hoop on the other. And so you and your partner have to kind of work together to, like, okay, you have to mold these different shapes and carry it. And that is a game that encouraged a lot of communication, because it was chiefly a couch co-op game. So you had to be with the same person as you were playing it. So the two of you would always be like, okay, so we got to do this, we got to do that. Okay, so what if you do this and rotate the other way, and cut this part out so it's like this shape. Okay, yeah, there you go. Now I'm going to do this. So you had to do a lot of communication, and it was really great to have that sort of game to encourage cooperation in that way.
Yeah, and I believe an expansion to that came out. Is it out yet? I don't remember.
I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look more into that. But yeah, I honestly, like, I would have no issue with more Snipperclips levels. That was a really, really fun game. And similarly to you, I can't really speak too much of Mass Effect Andromeda. Again, have not played much of the Mass Effect series as a whole, and Andromeda is no exception. All right, so running down our list once again. Our best multiplayer winner is Destiny 2, followed by Splatoon 2, and in third place, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Our honorable mentions, Mass Effect Andromeda and Snipperclips Cut It Out Together.
All right. Pretty happy with these lists so far. What about you?
I'm okay with these lists. Everything is going pretty smoothly so far. Yeah. In all seriousness, I've got no issues with the lists. I mean, everything shook out the way it shakes out, and I've got no complaints about anything here.
All right, well, here's a list that may just surprise you, Chris.
In what way?
That's right. It is our biggest surprise of 2017.
Oh shit!
And if I recall, this was a squeaker.
It may have been a squeaker. I don't remember the results. Yeah,
Well,
Justin, you have the list, so
let me refresh your memory, Chris.
yeah, I will be just as surprised as anyone listening.
In third place for our biggest surprise, we have Prey.
I'm surprised.
Me too. I have not played Prey this year. Chris, you have not either, right?
I have not played Prey, but I'm aware of the premises. You're traveling around the space station, and these aliens are possessing different inanimate objects throughout the environment. So you have to be on your toes pretty much the entire time, because at any point these aliens could jump out and attack you and kill you in an instant. So you have to constantly be on your guard, no matter which room that you're in.
Yeah, I believe Butch and Will spoke very highly of this game in their ballots, and I guess for those who haven't tried it yet, maybe we should.
Yeah, we should. This is a game. I know they had Prey come out several years ago, and I think this game is supposed to be a reboot of the franchise or a remake. I'm not 100% sure, but this game really came out of nowhere. No one was really saying like, oh, this Prey remake looks great or whatever. But it came out, and a lot of people really, really enjoyed the hell out of this game. So yeah, I'm surprised, but again, I've got no concerns with it being on our list.
Fair enough. Our number 2 pick, I'm so happy made this list. Number 2 biggest surprise of the year, Kamiko.
Oh yeah, Kamiko. This was such a wonderful gem. This was an eShop title on the Nintendo Switch, and this is a game that you could really beat in less than an hour. But man, what an hour that was. You get to control these 3 different princesses, and you roam around the overworld, and you have to solve these different puzzles and fight different enemies. And it was just this game is just a blast to play. And I remember I picked it up on a whim because it was cheap. It was one of at the time it was one of the few really affordable games in terms of like it was only $5 on the Nintendo Switch. Mm-hmm. So I said, let's scoop it up. And man, I was just blown away. This game it's just incredible.
Absolutely gorgeous pixel art, a kick-ass soundtrack, lots of fun, addictive gameplay. And I believe this was only made by a handful of people. I think like 3 or 4 total on the team. And just, again, it was very short. You could beat it in under an hour, but what an hour, like you said. It was just so much fun. Such an experience. There's 3 different characters, so you can play the game over again with the other 2 after you beat it once. And, man, I remember Zool came over my place one time, and I was editing an episode of this podcast, and I gave him my Switch, and I said, play this game Kamiko, to basically entertain yourself while I finish editing the pod. Mm-hmm. And I thought he'd play it for like a little bit. He played it the whole time. He was totally sucked in. And I think that's a lot of what everyone experienced when they played this game, just really diving into it, really getting drawn into its very addictive gameplay. And just beautiful presentation, awesome music, and yeah, just what a fun experience. And I know that those devs are working on something new. They're tweeting a lot of their in-game progress stuff, and it looks great. And they 100% have my support. I'm really looking forward to whatever comes next for them.
Yep, likewise. All right.
And then our winner, number 1, biggest surprise of 2017, Sonic Mania.
Woo! Sonic Mania. Ah, man, this is such an amazing game. And what was most surprising about this game is just how good it was, how fun it was. I mean, Sonic has had a track record of just, mud, just filth and mud over the past decade at least. And his few good games are like very few and far between. And Sega decided to hand the reins of this game over to this indie team led by Christian Whitehead, and he just friggin' like he captured the feel. Like this isn't just like a really good Sonic game in terms of like technical and level design and the environments, which all are amazing and unique in their own right, but this game just captures the feel of one of those old school classic 2D Sonic platformers. The music is really fun and catchy. The levels are punishingly difficult. Some of them are just really, really tough. Even the little mini games where you get the Chaos Emeralds are really a lot of fun, and it just has so many throwbacks to the Sonic franchise throughout the years. And it has these little Easter eggs and nods to different characters. And this game is a Sonic fan's dream come true. And I don't think anyone was really expecting this game to be as amazing or as good as it turned out to be.
Yeah, I think my favorite internet meme of the year, because I have so many, but this one stuck out, was Sega speaking to the masses and saying, "If you think it's so easy to make a Sonic game, then just make one yourself." And then it shows like Christian Whitehead and like Sonic Mania, and then it shows like the Sonic Mania sales and like its Metacritic rating and like how well it's doing. And then like the last frame was just like a Sega executives like looking sad, like, and it's so, you know, they had a vision of what they wanted. They wanted to go back to that classic Genesis style Sonic where he basically was owning the video game market, and they captured it perfectly, but in a fresh new way. It's basically like we got like a true Sonic the Hedgehog 4 or something, you know, and just a delight to play, a delight to see on the screen. The fact that it came out on like everything was great, so everybody could play it. It was only $20, a lot of content. You could play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles. Like, I mean, it was just the full Sonic fan experience delivered perfectly, beautifully, and most importantly, it was fun.
All right. So, what are honorable mentions?
So, we have a three-way tie for honorable mention for biggest surprise, which is surprising.
It is surprising.
We have Dead Cells, Golf Story, and Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Now that's quite a list there. Now, I don't think I played really any of those games. I did play Dead Cells. I played Dead Cells briefly, but yeah, that was a game that just like PUBG was in early access, and that game came out of nowhere. This is a game I remember first seeing Patrick Klepek tweet about it after reading a review from it on Polygon, where they gave it a 9 out of 10. And that took a lot of people by surprise because an EA game, an early access game, not an EA game.
Yeah, clarify that.
Yeah, an early access game getting such a review, and not just a review, but a highly praised review early on, caught a lot of people off guard. And so a lot of people downloaded this game, and yeah, it's really freaking good. It's like a roguelite platformer, and the environments, as it's a roguelike, you always everything changes, so you have to master the different mechanics of the game itself without memorizing like the map layout and all the different like enemy moves and all that. So you have to master yourself to master the game, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a beautiful looking game. It's pixel based. The environments are gorgeous. The enemies are really well designed. And just like any good roguelike, it is punishing, especially early on. Like, you have to grind and learn and adapt, especially early on. But the better you get, the further and further you progress. And it gives you that sense of accomplishment, like, okay, I'm getting this. I got this. And Dead Cells was really great. Golf Story I did not play, and Mario and Rabbids I did not play.
Yeah, Dead Cells, I always want to quickly mention how tight the controls were for that game, which I think led it to being such a fun and addictive experience. Plus, just the combat felt great. You know, just a fun game to play overall. Golf Story, I still have yet to play also, but I'm hearing lots of good things. People who love RPG-style golf games would really love this game. And Mario and Rabbids, I mean, that... again, when I heard that there was going to be a game with the Mario franchise mixed with the Rabbids franchise, I felt sick to my stomach, and I was extremely disappointed and upset. And then this game came out. It was a complete surprise. It was a tactics-based strategy game that no one expected, and actually turned out to be a lot of fun and really addictive to play. And I'm really happy for the team, the Ubisoft team that worked on it and put this out there. And I believe it was, if not the, but one of the best-selling Ubisoft products that came out this year.
I think so. I'm pretty sure Assassin's Creed Origins is up there as well, but
Right.
Mario and Rabbids is certainly up there for Ubisoft, and for good reason. I mean, Mario is Mario, and the Rabbids are the Rabbids. So, I mean, people like those Rabbids, and they merging of the two universes really helped sell a lot of people, I suppose.
All right, and our quick recap of the biggest surprise. Number 1, Sonic Mania. Number 2, Kamiko. Number 3, Prey. And a 3-way tie for honorable mention with Dead Cells, Golf Story, and Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
All right, Justin. If you thought that last category was great, then this next category is going to blow you right out of the friggin' water. All right? You are going to be just blown away by how amazing this next category is.
What is the next category?
The next category is biggest disappointment.
I'm sad now.
Wah, wah. Now, interesting note about our biggest disappointment. We had a lot of different games get nominated.
A lot of unhappy gamers this
A
year.
lot of unhappy gamers. So no one game really ran away with biggest disappointment. In fact, all of the titles I'm about to reveal right now, from 1 all the way down to honorable mention, were separated by 1 point. So first place and second place was 1 point. Second from third, 1 point. Third from honorable mention, 1 point. So yeah, tight grouping at the top here. So let's just go right in. Number 3, the third biggest disappointment this year, Middle-earth: Shadows of War.
Yes, so everybody loved Shadows of
Mordor.
Thank you. When that came out, that was a completely new concept to gaming with the whole Nemesis system and everything, plus tacked on to the much beloved Lord of the Rings franchise. So everybody was eagerly anticipating the sequel. And I haven't played it, but I've seen it played. I've watched other people play it, and it just seems like they just tried to do way too much with this game, and it's just a little too over the top. A lot of weird design choices. The orcs just felt like, to me personally, they went from like interesting to annoying. They wouldn't shut the hell up. Like, they talk so much in the cutscenes and everything, and everything was just trying to be on such a grand scale that I think it just kind of combusted it on itself.
I agree, and looking over our list again, I feel like we have a major theme regarding biggest disappointment, which we'll get to, I think, at the end. But, I mean, it's one of the biggest issues with video games this year. But yeah, Middle-earth: Shadows of War. Again, the different design choices that they made, I feel like they took too many creative liberties with the Lord of the Rings franchise. Like, I mean, the orcs, I understand in the original books and in the series, they're sort of mindless drones. They're just like, yep, we're a mindless army doing Sauron's bidding, burp, burp, burp. And there's a lot of talk about, like, oh, in Shadows of War, they have a bit more agency, they have a bit more personality. Different orcs are different from each other. They're not all just like mindless killing machines, and like that part of it is interesting. But I feel like they took it a little bit too far. Like you said, they made them very annoying and just aggravating. They're always trying to talk shit. I don't like the design choice they made with Shelob, the spider, where instead of being a spider, she is this sexy lady. Which, man, that I don't know how you justify that, but it was a very disappointing decision for me. And I mean, the other thing was the whole like loot box and microtransaction controversy. People were really. I mean, gamers were very loud and clear this year that they were unhappy with these loot boxes and this potential pay-to-win scenario. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's reflected in our voting.
Definitely.
All right, number 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have a lot of the same issues as with Shadows of Mordor, especially regarding the loot box microtransaction scenario. Again, I haven't played this game, but that's because I did play the first Battlefront and I really hated it for my own reasons. But a lot of people did like that game and they were very excited for the return of the sequel. And it was just marred by a whole slew of mess-ups from management. I mean, we don't need to really go into it all here, but it just kind of really spoiled the experience for a lot of people. And from what I hear, the actual campaign of the game is kind of really underwhelming and predictable. And just like a lot of things just really fell flat for this game.
Yeah, one of the biggest complaints is... you can get these different characters if you get in-game credits or if you pay a fee to actually download to unlock these different characters, including series mainstays like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker. And a lot of people had an issue with that just because, when you're playing these games, the whole idea, the appeal of the Battlefront games is you are in the thick of the Star Wars. You're on either the side of good or the side of darkness, and you want to feel that experience. And a lot of people wanted to have that experience as one of the major players in the galaxy, whether it be on the dark side or the light side. And to have it hidden behind a paywall really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And honestly, that's just par for the course with EA. It's why I personally have my own boycott of EA products. So I was never really going to pick up Battlefront 2, and it's just disappointing that the people that did pick up this game had to run into all these issues, because it shouldn't be a hassle to play video games. It should just be fun.
It's really kind of sickening if you think about it.
All right, and our biggest disappointment for 2017 is Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yep. All right. So once again, Chris and I don't really play the Mass Effect games, but many of our voters and friends out here are huge Mass Effect fans. They've loved the first 3 games, and this game that came out this year, not only was it bland and boring with bad writing, but also just had a mar of technical glitches and really creepy looking facial expressions. Do you remember that?
They were horrifying looking.
Yeah. The game was completely unfinished but rushed out at the end for EA's fiscal year, and just really just soured the experience of Mass Effect franchise as a whole, and really disappointed a lot of fans and gamers this year.
Not much more to add on to there. The issues with Mass Effect Andromeda are very widely known. Even remember their disastrous beta that they had where you could play I think the first hour of the game, and that soured a lot of people on the experience because it just wasn't fun. It was clunky, it was rushed, and these issues showed up in the final product.
Yeah, if you want to laugh, you can look up some videos of gameplay glitches in Mass Effect Andromeda. There's one I watched of Brad Shoemaker from Giant Bomb when he was reviewing the game, and he's at this cutscene with 2 of the aliens talking, and then one of the aliens keeps disappearing in the cutscene, and then he'd reappear on the screen, but in the T pose, which is like, when a character is like standing with his arms out to his left and right. Basically, when you like first build a character in a 3D modeling program, and like was stuck like floating in the screen in that pose, like it's just really embarrassing stuff.
Man,
Yeah. So if you want to laugh, look up some of that.
that is a shame. Honorable mention for biggest disappointment goes to For Honor. Now, For Honor is a hack and slash fighting game that came out February of this year. So it's been out for a long time. I mean, it's been out beginning of the year, but the issues that people had with it clearly are still fresh and raw enough to get it to honorable mention on our list. This is a game where it's a hack and slash fighting game where you take the role of different historical fighting groups. Like you could be a knight, like from medieval times. You could be samurai. You could be Vikings, and you basically were just fighting each of these different groups for honor. And that's the whole premise of the game. And it was developed and published by Ubisoft, and a lot of people. I mean, it's a cool concept to be one of these old ancient groups and fighting amongst yourselves to determine who is the ultimate strongest. But there were a lot of issues with the game. There was issues with matchmaking in multiplayer. There were a lot of technical issues that were bogging it down. And again, the game was, it was just bogged down by a lot of microtransactions that weighed everything down. So this wasn't a game that I picked up and played, but a lot of people had enough issues with it where it cracked our honorable mentions.
All right, give us a recap.
All right. So, biggest disappointments. Biggest disappointment was Mass Effect Andromeda. Not as disappointing as that, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Not as disappointing as that, Middle Earth, Shadow of War. And honorable mention, biggest disappointment, For Honor.
All separated by 1 point.
That cannot be stressed. This was a very fierce competition for most disappointing.
2 from EA, 1 from Warner Brothers, and 1 from Ubisoft.
Yep, all bogged down by microtransactions, which not surprising in the Year of Our Lord DLC.
Yeah. All right, now I know disappointing things are often a bummer, but Chris, are you ready to get a little crazy?
Are we here at the one category?
It is time for Press Say Repeatedly 2017 Best New Character.
Oh, I'm really excited for this one. You go on. I'm not gonna hype it up. Just go on.
Now, previously, as biggest disappointment was all separated by 1 point, this category also was separated by only 1 point. And let's just hop right in. Our third best new character of 2017, Celica from Fire Emblem Echoes.
Now, Fire Emblem Echoes, this was a franchise this was a game that I didn't really play too much of. Justin, tell us a little bit about Celica and why she is such an amazing character.
Well, she is one of the main 2 characters of Fire Emblem Echoes, is Celica and Alm. And they're kids that are raised together by their grandpapa in I can't remember the actual town, the name of the town that they start off in. But
it's Fire Emblemia.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. But they eventually, I don't want to spoil the story at all, but they eventually get separated and they kind of branch off into 2 different paths, and they both kind of form their own armies, and you take turns controlling each of their armies. And then eventually they kind of re-meet back up in the story again. And, things just kind of go off in there. There's kind of a love story between Alm and Celica that's going on in the background that's really nice. And, she's just this beautiful, fearless heroine that is not afraid of anything, willing to take on a challenge. She's a strong leader. She is super kind and caring and wants the best for her team and to help out whenever she can. And just a really interesting hero character, and I really love playing as her in Fire Emblem Echoes.
All right, awesome. So moving on.
Yes. Moving on to our number 2 best new character, Cappy from Super Mario Odyssey.
Now, I'm not too surprised by this, just because of how many of us have played Mario Odyssey, and Cappy is just he just feels like such a natural evolution for the Mario franchise. Because I mean, people like toss their hats for whatever reason, and it just makes sense that Mario would toss his hat. I mean, you could argue it doesn't make so much sense that the hat would now be sentient, but I mean, still, Cappy had a lot of personality. He helps inject a lot of. I mean, he's fun. He's joyful. He's a really he's a fun character, and I'm happy to have him included on our list.
Yeah, people forget that it wasn't just Mario trying to save Princess Peach in Super Mario Odyssey, but Cappy was trying to save his sister as well, who was also kidnapped by Bowser.
Yes. I mean, I don't understand why Bowser had to kidnap Cappy's sister as well. I mean, couldn't he have just like bought a hat at like a hat store? Which, now that I think about it, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Where we have where there are hat stores in a land where hats exist and are sentient. Are these just like the skins of the hats that are being sold in these shops?
Don't forget though, Cappy isn't a hat. Cappy is like a ghost hat creature that possesses Mario's hat.
Right, but he's not a ghost. Like they're all their own individual things. Like, I mean, I guess that is true. All right, that's a good point. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so my ridiculous theory that I was pulling out of my ass is completely debunked.
Okay.
Just immediately debunked.
I wonder how Celica feels losing to a ghost hat person.
I imagine she'd be upset, but
she's such a charmer. She'd be fine. She'd be happy for Cappy.
Imagine how Cappy must feel. Imagine how our honorable mention must feel. Listen to our number 1. Go on, do it.
The best new character of 2017 for Press A repeatedly.
Say it.
Is Mugman from Cuphead.
Mugman. He's not even the main character.
Now, before we go into this, I have to unveil our honorable mention for this category, which is Cuphead from Cuphead.
Doesn't make any sense. Why is Mugman? Mugman is your 2-player. When you play the game, you're Cuphead. Cuphead is the main character. Why? What about Mugman? What is it about Mugman?
The person whose name it is on the title of the game came in 4th place, and the person whose name it is on the title of the game's brother came in 1st place.
What is it about Mugman that makes him so appealing? I can't wrap my head around this. Like, I was upset with this yesterday when we put this together, and I'm still upset with it today. Why?
You literally forgot there was even a 2-player mode in Cuphead.
You can it's a co-op mode and if you hop in as a second player, you are Mugman. Outside of that, Mugman does nothing. Cuphead is the one who takes the bull by the horns. He's the one who is going around saving the different saving the world and trying to save his own soul. Mugman hops along for the ride. That's all he does. It's just he's the best character. He's the best new character. Cuphead was only an honorable mention.
Now, Mugman did try to stop Cuphead from rolling those dice in the beginning of the game.
But he failed. He failed. He is a failure.
But he has some common sense. Cuphead just saw dollar signs.
Okay, so that makes him the best character. We had nominations.
Look, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. It's very hard.
All the wonderful, incredible, unique, deep, emotionally complex characters that were revealed this year. And our winner is Mugman.
Democracy works, people.
Democracy is the only form of government that works. Clearly, that's the case. Jesus Christ. Give us a recap, please.
Okay. Your 2017 press A repeatedly best new character
Can't believe this.
is Mugman, followed by Cappy from Super Mario Odyssey, followed by Celica from Fire Emblem Echoes, followed by Cuphead from Cuphead.
Just completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
Let's move on.
Yes, let's. Okay. Our next category is most addictive game. Now, this one turned out to be a two-player race. Our top two contenders were only separated by 1 point, and there was a wide gulf between second and third. So this was a real dog race right to the end. So let's just go right into our most addictive games. So third most addictive game, according to you, the voters, is Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, what else can you say about this game? I mean, it's just every level is so fun, and it's packed filled with content of over 900 moons to get in the game, and each of them discovered in different unique ways, and you can find them accidentally. It's almost impossible to get to the end of the level directly because you keep seeing something on the corner of your eye that you want to go explore. All the different there's 2D platforming stages, there's 3D open world, there's racing. There is just so much different things to experience in this game, and it's a game that was built to even give you more content after you beat it. I mean, it only takes about 15 to 20 hours to actually beat the main story of the game, but then you can go back to all these previous levels, unlock all these new moons to find, unlock new actual levels to play, and then with all the different costumes you can wear, there's just so much content in this game. And it's perfect to just pick up and play whenever you want. You don't have to worry about where you are in the story or anything. All you're trying to do is just find some moons, It's a great game to play on a plane or on a long ride. It can be picked up anytime, anywhere with the Nintendo Switch. And it's just hours and hours and hours and hours of constant fun in a beautifully presented game.
Yeah, I mean, nothing more to add to that. I mean, that's a perfect summation of how amazing and addictive Super Mario Odyssey is. It is worthy of being not just one of the most addictive games this year, but one of the best games that we've played this year. And just unbelievable game. All right, now, our number two. Now, all right, this is separated again from our number one by just 1 point, so this was so close. But our number two most addictive game, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, this was a tough race. All three of these games, you could spend hours playing. If you're someone who loves to explore in a game, as I am, as Chris, I know you are, this is the ultimate game for that. You can literally go anywhere at any time. You can climb anything. You can see the entire world. There's just so much to experience. I put over 120 hours in this game. I still have 45 shrines left to find. Don't even get me started on the Korok seeds. I didn't even pick up the DLC yet. There's so much more out there for me to continue. And I love that it's in this category because this is a game that I never wanted to stop playing. I kind of had to force myself to stop playing it to play some other games. And even though I haven't played it in a few months, I can't wait to pick it up again. This is something that I could see myself just slowly putting time in over the next few years and just never getting tired of my experience with this game.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat with you. And especially now they're releasing all the DLCs with this game. I mean, I had over 100 hours in this game before they released the DLC. Now that they've got the Champions Ballad and the Trial of the Sword and everything else going on, with all the hours I've put into this game, I still haven't found all the shrines. I'm nowhere close to finding all of the Korok seeds. I don't think I even have 200 Korok seeds at this point because I'm not actively looking for them. If I stumble across them, I'll grab it, but I'm not going out of my way to try to find them. But yeah, even just the Korok seeds. If you did want to try to find the Korok seeds, you've got hours of gameplay in there all by itself, and not to mention all the side quests and the main quest, and just this game is so packed full of content. It's incredible.
All right, but what beat it by 1 point?
Beating Breath of the Wild by 1 point, our most addictive game of 2017, Destiny 2.
What a hard game to put down, and what a surprise too. I'm not a big first-person shooter game player, but this one, I think it has to do with that light level. Those 3 digits that you just want to keep getting higher and higher and higher, that you just can't stop playing. And the game was all about loot and getting so much more than you would in Destiny 1, and you're constantly getting these payoffs of these new weapons. I don't think I've stuck with one weapon for more than like maybe 10 in-game minutes, because I would always find something new that was better, that I liked better, and just constantly changing it out and trying it out. You got the 3 different classes, each with their own 3 different subclasses to try out, just a lot of different combos to try out that way. The legions of armor that you can get, the shaders to color it all in, blended in with like fun kind of social aspects of the game, like literally playing soccer in the town square, on top of just exploring all these different planets with your friends, all different modes, the PvP, the PvE, the main story. The game is just chock full with content and literally very hard to put down.
It was, this is a game that, like, yeah, we sunk hours and hours of gameplay into. That was a game where when it first came out, we would come home from work and just plop down right in front of our PS4s or Xbox Ones if you have that. But we would pop in front of our PS4s and just plop in Destiny 2 and just play it into the night. You couldn't put it down.
I have a fun anecdote of I was playing Destiny 2. I was talking to Zool, and he was coming over that day, and he was like, all right, I'm leaving here in like an hour or whatever. And I said, all right, cool, I got some time to play Destiny 2. And I think I just got out of the shower, and I was just in like my shorts and like nothing else, no shirt on, nothing. I was just lying on the floor playing Destiny, and I completely lost track of time. And the next thing I know, Zool opened my door in my room and was like, what are you doing?
What a bizarre sight that must have been.
I was literally like on my back on the floor with like my feet up in the air, like resting on a shelf, just playing Destiny. Completely lost to time.
Yeah, just what are you doing? That is a fair question. All right, so that was our most addictive game, and our honorable mention for most addictive game has to go to Persona 5. Now, Persona 5, that is a game you can easily sink 100 hours into that game. Everything I've heard from Elena and Lewis to everything I've seen online, you can easily sink 100 hours into this game just from doing all the different missions, all the different things that you can do during the day as you're trying to live your normal high school life, and then at night living your normal high school life of fighting demons and breaking into these different mind prisons and trying to save Japan from an imminent destruction, which is typical high school stuff.
Yeah, I think people really like and relate to the slice of life aspect style of the game, of how there's a calendar and you're literally playing days of the week, throughout the game. That you're doing a lot of normal high schooler stuff of like going to the cafe with your friends, and like there's a lot of romance building and friendship bonding aspects to the game on top of the traditional RPG style of combat. So there's just a lot to offer for a lot of different types of gamers, and I can totally see why people would sink over 100 hours into that game.
And there's a lot of different paths you can take. Like during the day, you have different options. Like, oh, do you want to hang out with this friend, or do you want to go to the movies with that friend, or do you just want to stay home and study? And each one of those actions has different consequences going forward throughout the game. And so you have a lot of different ways the game could shake out depending on the choices you make. So it offers a lot of reasons to go back and play it again and again.
Plus, who doesn't love a talking cat?
I mean, I would love a talking cat as long as it wasn't a jerk,
Yes.
which it was probably going to be very rare if a cat could talk. All right, so rundown of most addictive games. Our winner was Destiny 2, followed by The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Third place is Super Mario Odyssey, and honorable mention goes to Persona 5.
All right, and that is the end of our non-game of the year categories. Chris, anything really surprise you, or any notable omissions?
Mugman surprised me. That caught me completely off guard. Yeah, nothing really too surprising in that entire group. I will have to say, though, I have to give a special shout out, best graphics, and I would say best graphics and best art direction and best music to Nier Automata. Special shout out to that game. That's a game I wish a lot of people played more of, because it's just really epic and beautiful, and it's got an incredible message about like what it means to be a person. They're asking, oh, for the glory of mankind. Well, what is mankind? What does it mean to be human? And it doesn't even have just that messaging to it, but it's a really fun game. It's a gorgeous looking game. The soundtrack is just absolutely incredible. That's a game I wish could have made it onto any one of those main categories. I mean, it was a very stiff competition this year, so I have no qualms with any of the winners. But I have to give a special shout out to Nier Automata. That is a game that deserves notice and recognition, and I hope everyone out there can at least give it a shot at some point. Just check it out.
Yep. I would give two quick special shout outs. One for best art direction, Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap. I absolutely instantly fell in love with that new direction they took that game.
Yes.
I love the cartoony style. I love the character design. I love the backgrounds. I loved everything about that. The fact that you can, with the press of a button, flip back and forth between the new graphics and the old graphics without hindering the gameplay experience at all, was really cool. And I just really love that new art style that they gave. It's just so much. I mean, it really resonated a lot with me. And, I hope that can get some love too. And also, biggest disappointment, I have to go with the game Rhyme. I was really looking forward to that game, watching screenshots of it. Love the art style of that as well. But I heard, I did a lot of reading once it came out for the other systems, PS4 and Xbox and computer. And that just really didn't do that well. It was kind of boring and just overall disappointing. And I said, all right, I'm going to wait for the Switch version anyway. That's what I really want to play. Maybe that would be better. We had to wait an extra long time for the Switch version. I think the Switch version costs $10 more than the other versions. And then it comes out, and apparently it is a horrible port that just runs very poorly on the Switch with really horrible frame rate issues. And, it's just a huge bummer. And just very disappointed that's how it turned out for that game. So that would be my special shout out for those two categories. All right, Chris, before we get into the game of the year, why don't we quickly read through everybody's favorite moments in gaming this year and their favorite moments from the podcast?
All right. Sounds fun to me. This, again, these categories this one is not being ranked. We're just reading these just for fun, just to kind of refresh our memories and just have a fun recap of the year that was, this inaugural year of Press A Repeatedly. So, Justin, lead us off.
Yep, I will start with myself. My best moments in gaming, one would be exploring the world, the massive world in Breath of the Wild. 2, getting the Nintendo Switch at midnight release, lining up at Best Buy in the cold with a whole slew of Nintendo fans, young and old. That was always a lot of fun. Love talking to some of those guys and just seeing the sheer excitement in their faces. I mean, it just was really a special thing that I really loved. And, of course, starring this podcast with the help and input of all of my great pals. How sweet. Seriously, This has been something that I've wanted to do for a little while. And normally when I have these thoughts and ideas, I never really put a lot into them. But this one, and Chris, special thanks to you telling you the idea. Your enthusiasm really helped me go forward with putting this thing together. And, of course, everybody's helped with Nick with the music, Zool and Elena with the artwork. Everybody else is being on and contributing just so much. I mean, it's been a great first year, and I'm so excited for what's to come down the line.
Yep. Not teasing too much, but bigger and better things certainly coming down the pipe. And we honestly wouldn't have the confidence or the expertise without all you guys listening and chipping in and helping us. So we seriously appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the podcast, my favorite moments of the pod, one, all the kick-ass music from Genji Glove.
Yep. His brother, Nick Tomasello.
Of course.
Thank you.
2, Chris talking about rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that was an experience. Chaz still has not returned any of my calls.
Yeah. And of course, my favorite moment of the year, Pigman getting benched.
Still can't believe it. Still cannot believe it.
Yep.
All right. So we're moving on to me. Here are my best moments in gaming this year. For me, the third best moment was the Metroid Prime 4 and Beyond Good and Evil 2 announcements at E3. I was not expecting any sort of news about either of those games whatsoever. I wasn't expecting there to even be a next game in the Metroid Prime universe, but here we are. I mean, the games are now, they were announced, so they're still probably very, very early in development, not going to be seen for another few years, probably at least. But the fact that they exist and people are actually working on them, especially Beyond Good and Evil 2, which we haven't heard news about in forever, that they are still working on it, gives you hope. So that was one of my favorite moments. Number 2 was a traditional festival level from Super Mario Odyssey. I
don't want to spoil it, but
I do not want to spoil it, but it is. Yeah, I'm going to spoil it. All right, so spoilers. If you don't want to hear anything about a traditional festival, then just skip ahead 30 seconds or so. Okay, so you have Jump Up Superstar playing as you go through this old school level from the original Donkey Kong game, and then at the very end of it, you're playing the original Donkey Kong level with Donkey Kong, the original 8-bit sprite up top. That blew my freaking mind. I had chills up and down my spine as I was playing that entire thing. And you have that kick-ass song, which all of you hated. And I was the first one to say this song is great, and I was right. I was objectively right about that song being amazing. And
it took a year, but it grew on me.
And I finally was proven right by this amazing level. It was just so amazing, and it's so unlike anything that has ever been in a Mario game before. I love it to death. End spoilers. And my favorite moment in gaming this year was storming Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild. We alluded to it earlier with the music segment, but that music it's just a mix of the Hyrule Castle theme from Link to the Past, plus it has hints of the Dark World theme, I believe. The Dark Overworld theme.
It's a medley of the
it's a medley, and it's got the Ballad of the Windfish mixed in there too, and it's just got this thumping percussions going that just gets you pumped up. The violins, I'm a sucker for good violin work.
Oh yeah.
When I hear those violins kicking in, I'm just oh man. And then you're charging in, I'm running around, I'm flying all over the place, and there's guardians everywhere, and they're just firing lasers at you, and I'm just like, and the whole time this music is just pounding in my eardrums, and I'm just like screaming, "I'm coming, Zelda! I'm coming for you!" And like things are exploding all around me, and I'm screaming Ganon's name, and it was just the most. I never felt more like a badass this year playing a game than I did at that moment when I was storming the castle finally to take out my hated enemy. And it's a feeling that I can't that is very hard to recreate. All right, and my favorite moments from the podcast this year. My third favorite moment was Pigman being benched.
The absurdity of it all.
Number 2 was Justin playing Dontrell Dolphin 2.
Yahoo!
It was one of your favorite games, you know it. And number 1 was showering with Chaz in Rinse and Repeat. We felt a connection there, but he's not returning any of my calls. I don't know what to say.
Can't deny it.
All right, moving on.
Moving on to Zool's picks. His best moment in gaming. He starts with the Monster Hunter World announcement. That game coming to the West was a nice surprise. Attempting the raid in Destiny with everybody. Again, they didn't complete it, but they still had a lot of fun. And his number 1 moment was fighting a certain person in Fire Emblem Echoes. I won't spoil it. And I'm glad he didn't spoil it because I'm only about 12 hours into the game so far. So that would have sucked for me, but I'm really looking forward to it.
All right.
His best moment from the podcast. Nick talking about MMOs, followed by Justin talking about Dontrell Dolphin 2. I have a feeling this is going to come up a lot. Followed by Chris talking about Life of Black Tiger.
Oh, God, that game. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Okay, next for me is Elena's list. So for Elena, her third best moment in gaming this year, kind of surprising, was E3 Microsoft Conference 2017. So Microsoft's showing at E3 this year was one of her favorite moments.
Well, remember, she did get a Microsoft Xbox One S this year.
That is very true. And the One X definitely showed a lot of promise and potential. They showed off a ton of really good games coming to the system at some point.
Some cool indies, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a pretty good conference.
Yeah, it was a really good conference. They did a phenomenal job with that. And let's see, her number 2 was the release of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which it's no surprise there. And their number 1 moment was the Nintendo Switch unveiling, which, I mean, what can you say about the Switch? I mean, it just had a monster year for Nintendo. Just the thing is such a fun system. It's a perfect system. I'm 100% with Elena there. When the Switch was unveiled for the first time, and then it was, and then eventually released, it just, so many people were so excited for it, and that conference where they revealed everything with the fingers snapping and all that was really cool.
Yeah, what a great first year for it.
All right, so her best moments from the podcast, number 3 was Dave's email from episode 28. All I got was this lousy t-shirt.
That was a pretty fantastically
We don't
crafted email.
We don't get nearly enough emails into this show, but the ones we do get are always fantastic. Yeah, again, if anybody out there wants to email us for any reason whatsoever, except to sell Justin boner pills, then yeah, please email us.
Yeah, please forward those to my personal email.
Second favorite moment from the podcast was the Pigman update from episode 15, Benched, which again was the classic benching of Pigman after
can't believe it.
After almost throwing a perfect game, the coach benched him. It just, oh man, just moving on. Her favorite moment from the podcast in 2017 was Video Game Quiz Time Supreme from episode 14, A Twisty Guy. Now, I remember this was the Quiz Time Supreme I gave to you, the one that controversially was a little bit too hard, according to pretty much everyone I spoke to after the fact.
There was still some that I should have got that I did. And I was very disappointed in myself.
It still was a little hard. I needed to dial that one back a little. I'll know better for next time.
Controversial.
That was a brutally hard quiz.
Okay, moving on. Nick's best moments in gaming. He has 2 here. He has 1, beating Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. What a fantastic ending. Well, I think that journey coming to an end, is really special. Even if the ending wasn't quite as great as I wanted it to be, still the game as a whole, playing it and completing it is definitely a feat in itself. And then his number 1 moment of the year in gaming was David Solani crying, "Don't cry, Ubisoft man," when Miyamoto singled him out and thanked him for all of his hard work in developing Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle at E3 2017.
Yeah, that was certainly a really that was certainly a really heartfelt moment in not just in the conference, but probably this is a game that they have to have been in development for a couple years at least. These games, you can't just put them together, especially a franchise like Mario or the Rabbids franchise. It had to have been in development for a while, and to finally see your finished product out there being hyped up by Shigeru Miyamoto himself had to be just a completely overwhelming experience. And of course, the game came out, and it was a great experience. It was so much fun. Nick, I know, played it for forever.
Yep, absolutely. His 3 best moments from the podcast. Number 1, our launch episode. Number 2, Chris's Life of Black Tiger review. And number 1, our Little Nightmares special, where me, Chris, and Dave did a deep dive into the entire game of Little Nightmare.
Yeah, it was solid picks. That was a really fun episode to do.
Yes, it was.
All right, moving on. Our next is Louis T., your cousin and mine, not mine, Lewis. But
can't steal my cousin Chris.
I'll steal whoever I want. All right. His 3rd best moment in gaming this year was the final boss battle in Persona 5. Now, again, you and I never played Persona 5, so we cannot relate to this one iota. But we understand that the boss battles and just any encounter in Persona 5 is a completely unique and incredible experience. I did watch them play. They fought, I think, the first boss of the game. And they beat him. Elena and Lois beat the first boss of the game. It took a while to beat this one boss. So the idea that the final boss could be even more epic and more grandiose in scale than that is incredible. So I can definitely see where Louis is coming from. Number 2, I agree with this 100%. Anytime you defeated a boss in Cuphead.
Oh, yes.
That is... I got up to the 2nd island in Cuphead, and I fought the one bird boss, Wally Warbles, who lives in a cuckoo clock, and I fought that thing for 3 days. And finally, when I figured out his patterns and took him out, I actually managed to do it without getting hit once, because that's how well I remembered his patterns and how everything did. And when I finally got the knockout at the end, I was like, I was pumped.
Yeah.
And so, Lewis is right on the money here.
Absolutely.
And number 1, Mario becomes a frog in Mario Odyssey.
What a great moment in gaming history. Just from seeing the frog in the first trailer for Super Mario Odyssey, and just seeing a frog with a mustache and a hat, and that was just so great. So then you knew it was coming. But even when I first turned on that game, and it's the first possession of the game, how the whole thing works, how Mario throws his hat, he literally gets sucked into this alternate dimension time warp where he's literally bending through space and time. It looks painful and excruciating, and he's just literally twisting and stretching, and it goes into the body of the frog, and then the camera kind of zooms out, and the frog kind of realizes what's happening to him. It was awesome, hilarious, beautifully done. And then just the thought that this process happens every single time you throw Cappy onto something to possess
Yep.
is hysterical to me.
Yeah, he really puts poor Mario through the ringer. But yeah, again, great choice there by Louis. His best moments from the podcast. Third best was Pigman. Number 2 was Vroom in the Night Sky, which you 100% deserved for giving me Life of Black Tiger. And his favorite moment was Steve the Horse. he's still out there in the world somewhere. I'd never want to see that horse again as long as I live.
Moving on to Dave. Dave's best moment in gaming. He's only got one here, but it is for the launch of Destiny 2. Now, we've let you all know before that Dave is a humongous Destiny fan, and I remember seeing him being so excited, literally like counting down the days to its release in early September. And then when it came out, he just, I think he beat through the entire campaign like within hours of actually getting the game. And he was just so excited for it, and it was cool to see that. And then his best moments from the pod. Number 3, the tasting of the Switch cartridges. Remember in our Switch-tacular episode at the very end, we Butch, Chris, and myself actually tasted the cartridges because they supposedly taste very bad.
And so they do.
Kids don't put it in their mouth, and yeah, that was very true. They tasted horrible.
Yeah, they're awful.
Very bitter. Number 2 was getting his letter led on the pod, which we talked about earlier. What a great, hilarious letter from Dave. And number 1, horse named Steven. There you go again.
Perfect. Yeah. Who knew that a treacherous double-crossing horse would be so popular with everyone not named Chris? All right. Coming up next is Butch. Now, Butch's best moments in gaming this year. Number 3, killing Nazis in Wolfenstein 2. Which, I mean, come on. That's hard to pass up there.
Talk about a stress reliever.
Yeah, really. Number 2, playing Overwatch with everyone. That's a game I'm really glad that everybody is starting to get more and more into this year. This is a lot of fun, and especially when we're all playing together in a group. I love the communication and like the chatter that goes back and forth between us. A lot of fun.
Yeah, now Overwatch didn't come out this year, obviously, but this was the year where a lot of our friend group actually got the game and started playing it together. And it really is a whole lot of fun.
And his number 1 best moment in gaming was the first moment playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which, I mean, what can you say? When you first step out into the world and you see Hyrule stretched out before you, it's hard to beat.
I mean, think about literal years of anticipation and just all of us talking about how excited we were and slowly getting a trickle of information of what the game is and how it's shaping up to be, dealing with all the delays and everything and getting pushed back, waiting patiently, finally getting in line, getting the Switch, getting Zelda, getting home, popping it in, and seeing it on your TV screen for the first time. What a moment.
Yep, can't argue with that. His best moments from the podcast. Number 1 was all the times Butch was on. Number 2, all the times Butch was on. And 3, all the times Butch was on. Now, Butch is, of course, being a jackass, so that's not his real list. His real best moments from the podcast. Number 3 was the true or false and hearing everyone's different opinions about different things. Number 2 was all the question episodes. So like I'm guessing the Quiz Time Supremes.
Mm-hmm.
And number 1 was the Switch-tacular episode, which
you go.
Yeah, can't be beat. That was a really fun episode.
The episode just pouring with excitement. It was a lot of fun to record.
All right,
and then our
second to
last ballot will come from Will. His best moment in gaming was getting a chicken dinner in PUBG, followed by getting the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, which was a huge, great snag to get this year, and the whole game of Wolfenstein 2, as in their absolute crazy wild ride of a story. Which I've yet to experience, but I've heard it is absolutely intense. And his best moments from the podcast, he left all these blank. All right, Will. I see how you feel. Not a fan of the pod, eh?
Yeah, well, some people just aren't fans. What can we say? All right, moving on to Matt's. Wrapping this up, his best moments in gaming this year. Number 3, acing Ganon's castle without a hit of damage. Come on, Matt. You're just bragging now at this point. Show off.
Wow, that is pretty impressive.
That's extremely impressive. I mean, listen, if I took on Ganon's castle and I didn't get hit even once, I would be telling everybody. So you know what?
Yeah.
Matt has every right to brag about this
Fair
one.
enough.
That is a amazing accomplishment. Bravo, Matt. Number 2, clearing the world map in Zelda. He notes that this is more of an experience than a single moment, but I mean, this counts.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had exploring the world map on mine, so.
Yeah, it's it's really a series of moments throughout the entire game itself, so it's certainly acceptable. And the best moment for him was that that moment when he turned on Zelda and the music started. So as soon as it kicks on, man, we talked about it. That soundtrack is really amazing, and you see the world for the first time. It's just jaw-dropping.
Yep.
And his best moments from the podcast, Chris bitching about climbing in Zelda.
I love that wording because that is exactly what you did.
Listen, I had every right to bitch, okay? Friggin' rain. It's great phrasing. Oh, man. Okay, number 2, all of the indie arcade convos. I love them so much. Yeah, I gotta say, indie arcade is one of my favorite segments that we do.
Very proud of it, even when you're playing scantily clad little children in a game.
Yeah, that's the dark underbelly of indie arcade, but mostly it's good.
Yeah.
Mostly it's good. And his favorite moment from the podcast was our Little Nightmares special.
All right. Yeah. That's
solid
two
pick.
votes for that. Yeah.
Solid list. Solid picks from everybody, especially me. So yeah, I'm really thrilled with how everyone. I mean, everyone really enjoyed the podcast except Will, but it's. I mean, you know, we had a really good first year. We had there were a couple. There was a little getting our feet wet in the beginning.
Of course.
I thought. I mean, it'll be interesting if we go back and listen to those earlier episodes, how terrible they might sound compared to how we sound nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's we've come a long way, especially, I mean, we're just two guys starting from scratch. Like, we don't have pedigree of, like, starting out at, like, Giant Bomb or Kotaku or any place like that. I mean, we're just two guys who love video games and decided to start recording those times when we talk about it.
Absolutely. You know, this is very much a passion project. We both have very busy schedules, and sometimes it's hard to kind of fit this in, but, you know, it's a hobby and something that is extremely important to us. And, you know, one of the reasons why we wanted to have everybody submit their ballots for this year is because this podcast isn't just, you know, a joint thing between me and Chris. There is a PAR team, okay, that is presenting content to, you know, the internet every week. And it's every single one of our friends and our fellow game lovers that contribute, whether in the form of being on the pod or sending an email or doing artwork or sending in music or just anything, just giving their thoughts. You know, it's such an inclusive thing that we can extend to others. You know, it's stuff that we talk about when we're hanging out together that we really appreciate, and to be able to deliver that to everyone and to have everyone be a part of it is one of my favorite things about Press A Repeatedly. And, you know, there's a lot coming next year that will just be even more inclusive and more opportunities for everyone to contribute, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it too. Definitely stay tuned, stay subscribed, Butch, and yeah, really excited to unveil things for year 2 of the pod.
Yeah, so thanks once again, everybody, for contributing over the year and just playing games and talking about them.
All right, Justin, that's enough of that. It's time to do it.
Time for the brass tacks
Time to get down and dirty.
with the 2017 Game of the Year.
Game of the year, Justin. And what a year it has been.
We've said this multiple times over the year, which is how difficult of a year it would be to pick this list because of how many fantastic games came out in 2017. And we really dreaded putting this together, but really we're excited and had a lot of fun ultimately as well. And let's just see. Some things might surprise you, some things might not, but I think all in all we got a pretty solid list here. We have a top 10, obviously, and of course we have added some honorable mentions. We decided to go all the way to 15. So
Yes.
what do you say we start from 15, or we'll read our 5 honorable mentions?
Right. We'll mention our 5 honorable mentions. And then, if we mention a game that we haven't already gone into, we'll discuss it just briefly. Just a couple different facts, interesting notes here. 39 different games received at least 1 point. So somebody voted for it at least once. So 39 different games were nominated on our list. 562 total points were allocated out, but only one winner.
Yes, absolutely. And here we go.
Okay, here we go. All right. So our honorable mentions, 15 through 11 in order. 15 was Prey. 14 was Horizon Zero Dawn. 13 was Dead Cells. 12 was Hollow Knight. And 11 was Life is Strange Before the Storm. So let's talk a little bit about Hollow Knight and Life is Strange.
All right, now let's, because Hollow Knight was one of your favorite games of the year. It was in your top 10 list.
It was.
I have not played it. I haven't even watched any videos of it or anything. I only remember you talking about it on the pod and seeing artwork, screenshots of it.
Mm-hmm.
So enlighten me as to why that was in your top 10 of this year.
It's one of my top 10 games because it's a classic Metroidvania style game where you have this map to explore, and the combat is really, it's challenging but not punishing. It's got a slight knockback quality to it, so you can't just run up to enemies and just spam an attack button. You have to kind of like time your attacks and strategize things out a little bit. I really like a lot of the unique things that they brought to the genre, like their different waypoints and markers throughout the world, and even the map itself. As you explore the world, you'll come across a map maker who is scattered throughout different areas, and he'll draw more of the map for you, and then you return to the above world, and his wife works in the map shop, and she sells you these little waypoints and markers. So you can say, oh, here's one that shows where treasure chests are. Here's one that shows you where power-ups are, and so on and so forth. And they all cost these different amounts of coin, which you collect by killing various enemies.
That's a pretty unique feature. I don't think I've ever heard of that in a game before.
Yeah, it was a really clever twist on everything. And, I mean, it encourages, like, it helps bridge the gap between people who want, I guess, a more casual experience versus a hardcore exploration experience, because maybe you just want to go into this game and you don't want a lot of map markers and everything laid out right before you. You just want to explore the world and discover everything all on your own. You want that sense of adventure. Or you just want to go into this world and you want to say, okay, where are the power-ups? Where is everything? I want to try to just get through the game. And so the game offers you the option for going either way. So I thought that was really clever. The game also has a soul system where as you defeat enemies, you also build up kind of a soul gauge. And as you go through the game, it powers up, like you can add little orbs to the end of it to increase your soul meter. And the way you heal yourself is you can press a button to either stay in place and you charge yourself up for a few seconds and then you'll heal. But that leaves you exposed to different enemies because you can't do anything else while you're healing. So you have to either incapacitate your enemy or take out all the other minor enemies in the area first. Otherwise, you're a sitting duck. Or you can press another button and fire out your soul in like a giant wave. And this is an ability that's unlocked later in the game. You can fire it out of you as a giant laser that takes out a lot of the stronger enemies that you can't take out normally. So you have an option of using your soul for either offensive purposes or defensive purposes. And again, it adds like an interesting wrinkle and a unique gameplay to it, because you can use that powerful laser to take out enemies, but then that leaves you with only a little bit of soul left. So if you need to heal too, you kind of have to decide, okay, do I use my powerful laser or do I heal? And I mean, that's just the gameplay elements to it. The style of the game, visually, it runs smoothly. It's dank, it's dirty, it's gross, it's awesome. It was developed by Team Cherry, who they're based out of Australia, and it's their debut game. And honestly, if this is their debut game, I can't wait to see what comes from these guys down the line, because Hollow Knight is a phenomenal game.
Yeah, no, it looks awesome. I love the art style of it, and I know on the Game Awards, actually, Jeff Keighley's Game Awards, it was nominated for best game by a first-time developer, and it totally would have won if not for Studio MDHR and Cuphead this year.
Yeah.
So,
this was a really good year for indie games in general.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so now, do you want to talk about Life is Strange?
Yeah, Life is Strange Before the Storm is a prequel to Life is Strange, which came out last year. It is a 3-episode prequel developed not by Dotnon, who made the original game, but by Deck 9 Studios. And this game, kind of, to me, like, it had no right being as good as it was. Like, I was a little nervous when I saw that Deck 9 logo come up. Nothing against them, but I just thought it was weird for a different studio to work on a game that was already done by, a different studio, trying to capture their vision. But Deck 9 turned out to actually be very big fans of the original Life is Strange, and they put a lot of care and thought into this game. And at times, I feel like the writing is even better than the original Life is Strange. Now, the game did start off very slow and just kind of like in an uncomfortably weird and just not great looking first section in the game that could be a turnoff to a lot of people. And if you were turned off by the beginning, I encourage you to stick it out because it does get a lot better. It's just great writing, great characters. Chloe's such a great character, and to be able to play as her is great, a lot of fun. Some fantastic voice acting, even without Ashley Birch, who was out for the writer's strike. But I forgot her name again, but the voice actress who took Chloe's place did a fantastic job filling in for her. And, it just really does feel like more Life is Strange. And the best part about, only 2 episodes have been released so far, but the 3rd episode, Chris, I don't know if you know this, is coming out December 20th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just, let's see. As of the date this podcast goes live, it's going to be Wednesday this week coming up. So Wednesday the 20th will be the last episode of Before the Storm. That is not including the bonus episode that is coming out in January.
Yeah, I believe so.
Which, that is really interesting because that is going to feature the return of Ashley Birch as Chloe, as well as the original voice actress for Max.
Yes,
is coming back. So that is really, really exciting.
Yes. So there we go. Here is our honorable mentions for Game of the Year. At number 15, Prey with 10 points. At number 14, Horizon Zero Dawn with 11 points. At number 13, Dead Cells with 11 points. At number 12, Hollow Knight with 12 points. And at number 11, Life is Strange Before the Storm with 14 points.
All right. Time to get to the meat.
And potatoes.
Yes. Now that we've gone through the gravy, which is the wrong way to eat meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Eat the gravy first, separately, and then the meat and the potatoes.
Right. Man, are you telling me I've been eating meat and potatoes wrong my entire life?
I don't believe it.
All right, so let's do this.
Okay. Number 10. I am so thrilled this game made our top 10.
Me too.
With 16 points, Night in the Woods is our 10th best game of 2017.
Just 100% deserving. I mean, this game, like, it's a very, like, in terms of gameplay, it's a very simple, like, platformer. There's some different sections where you have to, like, steal things, and it's a little bit timing based because you have to see if characters are looking at you. And there are different mini games you can play, and what really sets it apart, not just the aesthetic of the game like we discussed earlier, but just how soulful it is. Like, it really captures that feeling of growing up in a depressed town that once was booming thanks to the mining industry that used to exist there, but then the mine shut down, and now it's really just a backwards, that's insulting. It's kind of a rundown, depressed area that really isn't going anywhere. And it describes the lives of the people there who are kind of resigned to living there. There are some people who are like, yeah, we got to get out, we got to do more. May is a perfect embodiment of, like, the naive optimist who's like, oh, everyone is depressed and miserable, and she's like, oh, well, instead of doing that, why don't you do this, and why don't you do that? And everyone points out to her, it doesn't work that way. Like, that's not the way the real world works. And it's just such a fantastic experience, and it was one of my absolutely one of my favorite games of this year. So I'm really happy to see it make the list.
Yeah, it's got a powerful story which hit close to home for me and for maybe a lot of people that play it, about just getting out of college and trying to find your way and what you're going to do with your future, watching your friends grow up and having to deal with other responsibilities that you don't really want to deal with. And it was delivered in such a beautiful style. It is a visual novel basically at its heart. There is a lot of dialogue to read, but it's an enjoyable read. I was never, like, bored or tired from reading anything from the cutscenes. It's got fun little mini games in it and some light platforming. And, all in all, it's about a 5 to 6 hour game, I think, to play. Could be a little bit longer depending on how you play it, but just a very pleasurable experience. I was anticipating it for a while. It was one of my most anticipated games of the year earlier this year, and so happy to have been able to play it this year.
Moving on to number 9. Number 9 with 19 points is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Now, what a creepy game this was. I think we may have alluded to this earlier this year when we did our Creepy Arcade, but I think the fact that this game is in first-person view, as opposed to ordinarily it's like have a top-down view versus like a third-person view, etc. That first-person view gives it that extra air of creepiness because you don't know where this murderous Louisiana family is coming from, whether they're behind you or off to the side. And Capcom did such a good job of recapturing that old feeling of terror that was in the Resident Evil series that had gone missing as it started veering more towards an action focus versus a horror focus.
Yeah, absolutely. They made a move that they needed to do with 5 and 6 just being way too action oriented, and they pulled it off exquisitely. The game looks great. The graphics are fantastic. Of course, it's scary as hell. It has a whole a VR experience. You can play the entire game in virtual reality. And it's one of the few games that apparently works better in virtual reality than it does playing with a controller. With even scary, you couldn't give me money to play it in virtual reality.
Oh God, no. Absolutely not. I understand that it is one of the very few experiences in virtual reality that I'm actually like interested in, but I know myself and I know if I actually get in there, I would be absolutely terrified because I am a coward. So that's not an experience I would want to dive too deeply into, but the game looks great. It sounds great. It's creepy as hell. Definitely deserving of being our 9th best game of the year.
All right, moving on to number 8 with 20 points, Sonic Mania. What a comeback for the Blue Blur. A game that was much anticipated, but people were a little worried. Again, we talked about this earlier, but Sonic's track record has not been great in the past couple decades.
Oh god, no. Well, the past decade, I would say. Like the games before then, like you had some of the handheld games, like Sonic Rush on the the DS
That's
was
true.
really good.
Sonic Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about this before, but just what a great, pleasant experience. It appeals to both Sonic fans, young and old, people that have grown up with him and people that have just been introduced to him recently. Just a fun, great Sonic experience on every platform, cheap, and just a blast to play.
Not much more to add there. As yeah, it was wonderful seeing what they did with Sonic there. All right, number 7 on our list with 21 points, and special shout out. This was Dave's personal game of the year. Was Little Nightmares.
Yeah, Little Nightmares. Wow. Chris and I aren't big horror fans really at all. We're kind of cowards. We said it before.
Mm-hmm.
But playing this game, it was a game I did not expect I would like as much as I did, and they nailed the tone. The art style is great. The lighting is fantastic. The creatures are creepy but interesting. The story was really interesting. Had a kind of a cool twist at the end. It was all wrapped up in a short but fulfilling experience. There's a lot of DLC coming out for it. I played the first one. The second one's out. I haven't even gotten it yet, but I really want to. For an indie game, this had so much to offer, and was just, there's a reason why we had a whole episode devoted to this game, and for a lot of us, it was one of the best experiences of the year, and I'm really glad that it's getting recognized, because I don't think this is a title that you will see get enough recognition on other sites, Game of the Year lists.
No, this is one that I feel like a lot of other sites are kind of letting slip under the radar a little, and it doesn't deserve to be slipped under the radar. This year in gaming has just been jam-packed with so many amazing, genuinely excellent video games this year, both AAA, indie, you name it. They're just experiences all over the place, and Little Nightmares is no exception. This game was a joy to play. It was it was a joy to play in some aspects. It was a terror in others. It was an experience, and it's very hard to it's hard to put into words how terrifying playing this game was, but it was a lot of fun still. It was really cool mechanics, and I'm really happy to see it on our list.
Hiding under the floorboards with the finger monster on top. Oh man, that was definitely the most anxiety driven part of that game.
All right, moving on.
Number 6. This is Lewis's personal favorite game of the year. At 23 points, we have Persona 5.
Yep, and Persona 5, we discussed it earlier. Really unique RPG, got a lot of style. Unfortunately, neither Justin or I played it too much, but based on everything that we have heard, this is a very worthy inclusion on our Game of the Year list.
Yeah, the Persona fan base are, very passionate about these games, and I know, especially here in the West, they've been waiting for a long time to play this game. It came out in Japan, I think, over a year ago, and to see Lewis and Elena, who are part of that fan base, be able to get the game, play it, put hundreds of hours into it, and love it, it's just great to see, and I'm glad it's getting represented here on this list. And it is something I would like to check out at some point. So we'll just see. Until then,
All right. Top 5.
here we go.
Are you ready?
So 10 through 6 was the potatoes. Now we're at the meat.
We are at the meat. We are eating this meal in a very bizarre order, but
Yes, we are.
but you know what? As long as it is all the same once it gets in our belly. So here we go. All right, number 5 with 28 points, Cuphead.
Cuphead, the indie game of the century, you could even say.
Yeah, it just what more can you say? I mean, it's got that classic 30s feel to it. Mugman just steals the show in every possible way. I mean, you barely even notice that Cuphead is even there.
Yeah.
And Mugman is just such an imposing presence.
Of course.
But yeah, so I mean, we talked about it ad nauseum earlier. So yeah, it's a worthy inclusion. I'm happy to see it here.
Yeah, I think it's just crucial to point out, not only, of course, the art style, but it's a template to make a challenging game that's not punishing. It's a game that you're going to die a lot, but every time you do, you're learning something new. You're memorizing patterns. You are working your way to get through beating that boss. And the gratification of beating a boss in Cuphead is probably one of the most satisfying things in gaming this year. And it absolutely deserves its number 5 spot on our list. But now we move to number 4 with 30 points. This is Zul's favorite game of the year, Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadows of Valentia.
Yeah, this continues the classic Fire Emblem formula. Zul had this one pegged for months now as his game of the year, and obviously nothing could unseat it for Zul. This it's one of the more unique experiences of this year. Justin, you played the game a lot more than I did. What really sets this game apart from the pack?
Yeah, well, I'm still playing it now. I think one of the best parts about this game is that you can kind of pick it up and get back into it whenever you want. So I think much like Little Nightmares, this is a game that's going to be kind of overlooked on a lot of other sites and publications' Game of the Year list. It's a 3DS game at the very end of the 3DS's life. A lot of these 3DS games kind of get overlooked over in general. So it's important to me that this game got a lot of attention, and I'm really glad it did. Number 4 on our top 10 list. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. If you're a Fire Emblem fan, this game is perfect for you. If you're not a Fire Emblem fan, but you want to get into Fire Emblem, this game is perfect for you. It's a great introduction to the series, but also a great standalone, game in the series. It's got fantastic characters, incredible voice acting, more than any right for a 3DS game should have. It's got multiple different visual styles. You got your beautiful 2D illustrations for the cutscenes. You have your sprite-based, movement on the battlefield. You have your 3D rendered actual battles when they're fighting, and of course the added new 3D rendered, third person exploring through the dungeon, which is a nice touch, and just an addictive game to play. It's something that is one, especially now when it's so hard to find time to play games for us a lot. This is the perfect game to kind of pick up, do a round, like do a fight, do a battle, and then like go to sleep or something. Mm-hmm. It's literally broken down into segments, and I think that's why it works so well for me this year in my lifestyle. I played a lot of this game while I'm doing laundry at the laundromat.
Right.
It was like a go-to thing for that, and it's enticing. It's got great characters, and I'm kind of running around in circles here, but it's just. I think if you're a fan of strategy games, play this game. If you're a fan of Fire Emblem, play this game. And if you're looking for something new, a new style of game that you haven't tried before, play it. For me, it's the perfect Fire Emblem because it gets rid of a lot of the crap that doesn't really need to be there. Not saying it's bad, but like a lot of the romance and relationship stuff can kind of bog down the experience a bit. This is more like a bare bones, like here's the game, here are the battles, here are the characters, like, just kind of watch the story unfold. And that's what I think I like most about it.
All right. Moving on to our top 3.
Yeah.
All right. Third best game of 2017, according to you, the voters, with 51 points, Destiny 2.
Destiny 2, the game that we all played this year, and we all kind of loved it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, we talked about Destiny 2 a lot earlier in the show, and it's, just a fantastic experience. I mean, nowadays, it's being bogged down by a lot of miscommunication from Bungie regarding these microtransactions and the leveling up system and the new Curse of Osiris DLC. And it's a shame because, I mean, the game when it first came out was, it was a lot of fun, and we put a lot of hours into the game, but it's just getting really, really bogged down now by a lot of this microtransaction-y mess that's going on, and it's really a shame because a lot of people are expressing disappointment, and it was such a fun experience. Like, we had a blast playing this game with everyone as a group.
Mm-hmm. We should mention though that Activision and Bungie are redacting on a lot of their tactics with the DLC. They're fixing the problems that they caused, and that is good. A lot of companies wouldn't even bother to do that. But, speaking for this year, speaking of the amount of time we've played the actual game, for a lot of us, myself in particular, this is an experience that I didn't think I would enjoy anywhere near as much as I did. Again, it was our most addictive game of the year for good reason. Best graphics it won as well. Just a lot of highlights for this game. And, it's just, I think it's well deserved. And I'm really glad that I actually was able to get it and play with everybody this year.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on to number 2. This is Will's favorite game of the year. And appropriately got 64 points in the voting. And that game is Super Mario Odyssey.
What an amazing refresh of the Mario formula. This is the first game in the Mario franchise where you could literally run around to all parts of the different world that you're in, since Sunshine, I believe, because you could collect different shines at different moments in that game. Mario 64 was the same way. You could go in for one particular star, but you didn't have to necessarily get that star. You could get any star, and Mario Odyssey returns you to those roots with the amazing twists and innovations that you throw the hat and you can possess different creatures to access different powers and different movesets that you couldn't have before. And I really love the ability, so you get a power moon, but you just immediately stay in the world, so you can just keep going and collect more power moons, versus you get the moon, you jump out of the world, then you have to jump back in, pick the level, go back in, and then move on. So that's a really, really unique experience. One of my favorite games of this year. I'm really, really happy to see it make it so highly on our list. In most other years, this probably would have been our runaway choice for Game of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, a 3D Mario hasn't been around since Galaxy 2, and we were all really hungry for one. And seeing that the first trailer of it, and just I know personally, it got really excited because I had flashbacks of Super Mario 64, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And then it turns out that this game is actually more like Super Mario 64 than you would think. And it's just, to me, it felt like I was playing Super Mario 64, but updated for a 2017 look and feel. Plus, the added ability of being able to play it on the Switch wherever I wanted to. As a humongous Mario fan, this was such a nice, great cap for the end. Cap, pun intended. For the end of 2017, for the end of the Switch's first year, and just a great overall year with Nintendo. and 100% deserves the praise that it's been getting.
All right. Well, this is it. The big reveal of our Game of the Year for 2017. Now, this probably is not going to be a surprise to most everyone out there who's listened to the show or paid attention to us, but getting 6 out of 10 first place votes, winning 104 total points out of the 562 that we had given out, is the 2017 Press A Repeatedly Game of the Year, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Chris, you asked me earlier when we were looking through the tallies of everything. As a Mario fan, you were shocked that I went with Zelda above Mario and why I did that.
Right.
And I think for me, what was so great about the story of Breath of the Wild was that the Zelda franchise was kind of waning. Skyward Sword was, for lack of a better word, kind of a stinker,
It sucked.
It was kind of boring. People were getting tired of doing the same old thing again. We had a couple 3DS offerings that were kind of good and bad with
Right. It was Link Between Worlds.
And then the Triforce Heroes.
Triforce Heroes, right. But the series as a whole was definitely starting to get stale,
It's getting
especially
stale,
on
getting repetitive.
consoles, yeah.
So, not only did the entire team completely reshape how a Zelda game works and what you do in it, they created the best open world game to date of literally going anywhere you want at any time. They completely restructured how a Zelda game works. One of the proudest franchises, not only in Nintendo of all of gaming, and it was highly graded as one of the best games, not only of the year, but ever.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is not just a game that gamers enjoy. Breath of the Wild is a game that game designers have really enjoyed. This is a game that if you follow any game designers or see what they have to say about Breath of the Wild at all, this is a game that is going to be studied and mimicked and is going to be influential to a lot of designers and a lot of gameplay theory going forward. Just the innovation alone of having an open world game where you can climb anywhere and anything really opens up the gameplay a lot and makes it really exciting. I mean, nowadays you can go back to any other open world game, and the fact that you can't climb anything is now frustrating because Breath of the Wild introduced this simple mechanic, which, I mean, it's simple to us, but I'm sure behind the scenes the actual coding for it is really, really complex. They've innovated not just the Zelda franchise, they've innovated open world games, they've innovated games in general, they've innovated what a lot of designers think that games can be, and they've helped expand that world a little bit. And even in its own right, it's influential in that regard, but even then, on a basic level, it's just so much fun to play. From the cooking aspect of it to doing the little mini games that are scattered around the world, to the divine beasts, to exploring everything, to
the whole new weapon and armor system.
The weapon and armor system. I know a lot of people have complaints about the weapon durability aspect. I had complaints about the rain mechanic in the game, but what's great about the team at Nintendo EAD under Eiji Aonuma, they have shown and proven a willingness to listen to their fans and accept that feedback and not be stubborn and say, no, this is what a Zelda experience is. This is what we're going to be providing to you. They heard everyone's feedback, turned it around and said, all right, here's the experience that you wanted. And I know that they're taking whatever criticisms exist of Breath of the Wild and they're going to incorporate them into the next game in the franchise, which is probably years away at this point, of course. But I can't wait. And frankly, I'm have no complaints at all about our Game of the Year winner. It is richly deserved.
No complaints at all about the winner. No complaints at all about this list. I'm just going to run through it one more time. In 15th place, Prey with 10 points. 14, Horizon Zero Dawn with 11 points. 13, Dead Cells with 11 points. 12, Hollow Knight with 12 points. 11, Life is Strange Before the Storm with 14 points. In 10th place, Night in the Woods with 16 points. 9th place, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard with 19 points. In 8th place, Sonic Mania with 20 points. In 7th place, Little Nightmares with 21 points. In 6th place, Persona 5 with 23 points. In 5th place, Cuphead with 28 points. In 4th place, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia with 30 points. In 3rd place, Destiny 2 with 51 points. In 2nd place, Super Mario Odyssey with 64 points. And Press A Repeatedly's 2017 Game of the Year with 104 points, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Whew.
Wow. What a year it has been. Any games that are not on the list that you feel like should be on the list?
I had Kimiko in my top 10, actually. I love that game so much. I talked about it earlier, but it was just such a pleasant, fun experience. And, I'm really glad, even though it didn't make our top 15, I'm really glad that it got some recognition earlier and some of our other awards.
Right. Special shout out, again, to Nier Automata is probably the most prominent game that is on most people's lists, like very high on their lists, which is not on our list at all. This, for me, I gave this, this was my third favorite game of the year. It's an, again, excellent game. You should all go out and everything I said earlier, just play that back again. And one last special shout out to your brother Nick, who his 4th place game on the Game of the Year was Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
I know Elena and Zool, they are really loving it as well. So, to each his own. That's the whole point of this, I guess, democracy.
Right, I suppose.
Assassin's Creed Origins, too, I think if more people played that, it would have ranked a lot higher. That kind of came out at the end of October, and I believe of our group, only you and I think Matt had time to actually play that game. But
right.
I think if more of us actually could sit down and play it, I think that would have ranked a lot higher as well.
I agree. And quick little call-outs to Tacoma and What Remains of Edith Finch, 2 amazing stories that just couldn't cut it to make it into our list. But those are fantastic games. All the games that we played this year are just absolutely amazing and wonderful, and will be a unique experience for years to come.
Yeah, I think if we had a best story category, they would have ranked pretty highly. Maybe next year.
All right. Well, what do you say we put a bow on 2017 and call it a year?
Yeah, so this is going to be our final episode of 2017. We will be taking a couple of weeks off for the holidays, but we will be back in January with more fun content for you guys. Again, thanks to everyone for voting. Thanks for a fantastic year of supporting the podcast, of listening to us, of spreading the word, tweeting about us, emailing us. Everything has been so appreciative. And again, I know Chris and I are very thankful for everybody's hard work.
Yep, absolutely. Can't wait to see how things go in 2018. Very, very excited.
Well, until next year, boyos. Remember, Press A Repeatedly posts new episodes Mondays on iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show, or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you.
You can follow us on our Facebook page and on Instagram at Press A Repeatedly. We're also on Twitter at Press A Repeatedly. I am at cgold113 and Justin is at oaf7724. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's all for this episode. Chris and Justin signing off. And remember to type out your scream when Mugman wins Best New Character. Press A repeatedly. See you next year, everybody.